You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Greeks Gridiron and to another edition of UFL News Desk as I dive into a couple of things that I would like to discuss with you all today. One being just UFL Free Agency as a whole, a lot of the transactions that have gone over the last week, and also some notable signings that I have seen so far through these last couple of weeks since the UFL Super Draft officially wrapped up and free agency kicked off, and also a change on a coaching staff for the Michigan Panthers. So sit back and let's discuss. Be sure to share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, but we'll start with the free agency period and a lot of the transactions that have gone on here. So it's been a whirlwind since January 16th. Following the Super Draft the day prior, the UFL opened up free agency. Players have been allowed to agree to sign with the league and go to teams of their choosing. And since the UFL officially kicked off their free agency period, a whopping 145 different players have all agreed to terms with the league to play spring football in the UFL, the premier spring football league to play in for this upcoming season. This includes draftees as well, so it's not all just free agent signings, but there have been 145 total players that have agreed to terms. Now, if you have not already, I highly recommend two places to get all this information from, because realistically, I just, at this moment in my life with work and everything else I got going on, I don't have time to update as much as I would like to about all this stuff. I highly recommend you check out at UFL_PR on X, formerly Twitter, whatever you want to call it. They are always posting updates in bulk as well, so it's really nice to have a big old list in front of you of all the signings. They basically do it every few days or so to kind of catch everyone up to speed. But if you haven't already, check out the people over at Pro Football Newsroom. They do an excellent job covering alternate football as a whole, spring football as well, of course, with the UFL. They do an awesome job there. You can go and check everything out on there. They post pretty much updates as it happens. James Larson does an excellent job leading the way over there for them as their insider. So highly recommend you guys check them out if you want to follow literally signing by signing. Because like I said, the UFL PR team, they do a good job just bulking everything together if you don't need to kind of be up to date with every single signing as it happens. But if you want to see those signings basically as they drop, the Pro Football Newsroom people do an excellent job there. Some notable signings I wanted to highlight, though, because there are a few names that I thought really stuck out to me over these last couple of weeks that I've kind of been keeping tabs on as the signings have dropped out. The first one I want to mention here is going to be defensive back DeAndre Baker. He was drafted in the first round by the Giants in the 2019 NFL Draft. Some legal issues ended up kind of putting his NFL career to a halt, but he has signed with the DC Defenders, a unit that had a really good defense last year. Getting a big plus first round NFL talent in DeAndre Baker should be a nice addition for them. Then we'll take a look at defensive lineman Trevon Coley, who has been in the NFL since 2016. He's had stints with teams like the Browns, the Colts, the Cardinals, and a few others as well. He's signed with the Arlington Renegades. He brings NFL experience and pedigree. Again, a guy who's been in the league since 2016. He has a whopping 100 career tackles and 3.5 sacks. I think this should be an excellent addition up front for the Renegades. Another big one here, we'll take a look at a couple of quarterbacks too. The first one, though, that I have to mention, Trey Williams. Yes, USFL Maulers quarterback Trey Williams. Obviously looking for a team, as the Maulers will not be in the UFL in 2024. A dual threat quarterback and a guy who, in my opinion, took leaps and strides during the 2023 season as he took over the quarterback spot for the Pittsburgh Maulers and helped lead that team to not only a playoff appearance, but an appearance in the 2023 USFL Championship, signing with the Memphis Showboats here, complicating some things with the way the quarterback room is now looking, because if you know what's going on with the Memphis Showboats, we're talking Case Cookus now, Cole Kelly, who was there last year, and now Trey Williams, all battling for that quarterback one spot. So clearly competition is wide open. I think a lot of people were looking at Case Cookus as a clear favorite to land that spot, but now that signing with Memphis has kind of shaken things up, I'm going to be very much intrigued with how things shake out over there in that quarterback battle, because I do think that it is wide open now going into this season. Another quarterback signing, and a notable one as well, and I think one that a lot of Michigan Panthers fans are really excited for. Have to highlight this guy, EJ Perry, who made a brief comeback, but then ultimately wound up going, I think, to the Jacksonville Jaguars it was for a little bit of time. So he signed back with the USFL, and then this was prior to the merger, went back to the Jaguars, course, unfortunately lost by the Michigan Panthers, and now he's back again with the Michigan Panthers, and I'm talking quarterback E.J. Perry. And for those of you maybe on the XFL side or just don't quite know who E.J. Perry is, well, he made 2 incredible starts for the Michigan Panthers last year in Week 10, helping lead to a playoff berth for the Panthers, and then in the postseason, ultimately in a losing effort to the Pittsburgh Maulers, went for 3 total touchdowns and 370 passing yards in their playoff game against the Pittsburgh Maulers. This is an exciting one because I don't really think that the quarterback room was as strong prior to E.J. Perry signing over there in Michigan. So now with a guy who clearly had found some success in Mike Nolan's system last year coming back, and I cannot wait to see what he can do for Michigan. And I'm really hoping and rooting for him as the guy who lands that QB1 spot. And then one other person I want to highlight here as a signing, that's going to be linebacker Markel Lee, a guy who was drafted in the 5th round of the NFL back in 2017. He spent some time with the Bills and Raiders, but a guy who has 45 NFL games under his belt with 19 starts. He has 115 career tackles there. Should be a nice addition for his team as well. I do think that there are a litany of guys that you could really dive into and look at as far as just signings or people that have just made agreements with the league, because I think one thing that might have gotten lost on some people with the way this whole super draft and everything and the dispersal draft and all that was going is that these players don't necessarily need to play in the UFL, even though they're being drafted by these teams. We've kind of seen a little bit of crossover going on right now with some players that maybe have been drafted by UFL teams or initially agreed with UFL teams. I think Robert Nkandiche is a really good example of this, who initially were going to the league but opted to take their services to the CFL instead. I think a lot of people still keeping an eye on Jordan Teamu and what he's going to opt to do. I think that's another prime example of that, a guy who is claimed by the UFL but isn't necessarily guaranteed to be in the UFL. So keeping an eye on the players that are agreeing with these teams going forward is definitely something worth watching. Just because your team drafted a guy does not necessarily mean they are playing for that team this coming spring. There's a good possibility that they could jump to the CFL. You also have the Elf Football League over in Europe as well. There's a few different destinations that people could be going to. Maybe an arena league seems more appealing to them. There are plenty of places to go. So definitely worth keeping an eye on all these signings. And then one person I want to mention here, because I thought this one was rather shocking to me. This is a departure as opposed to a signing. We saw the Houston Roughnecks waive quarterback Kenji Bahar. I was very surprised when I saw this one pop up here. They went and brought Reed Sinnett in to take his spot on the roster. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Kenji Bahar, he is a large reason as to why the offense in Houston last year took such a massive leap from the year prior. If you remember the Gamblers offense in 2022, it was not exactly the most threatening unit in the world, but then you look at the Gamblers in 2023 and what Kenji Bahar was able to do with that team and help make a legitimate run for the Gamblers in the 2023 season. I was a little bit surprised when I saw this one happening here. He was somebody that I was really pulling for last year, and I was excited to see his growth and the development that he had. So I'll be keeping an eye on Kenji Bahar and seeing where he goes, but that was one I was definitely not anticipating, and I think a lot of people were pretty shocked by that result as well. But that's just kind of a quick condensed kind of recap as far as the last couple of weeks have gone with UFL free agency. Like I said, some of those guys weren't even necessarily signings. They were people that were drafted that just agreed with their teams. I wanted to highlight some players there, but large majority of them guys that have been signing over the last couple of weeks. If you have not seen the large list of guys that have signed with the UFL over the last couple of weeks, again, I cannot stress enough, check out the UFL PR team on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. They do a great job of bulking all the people together. They list the teams and where the people are signing as well. In Pro Football Newsroom, I got to shout out them again because they do a really good job putting the rosters together there. You can go right to their website, look at the teams right now, and with the current state of the UFL's website, you can't really do that over there. So it's nice to have a place to go to because they are a big resource for me in being able to just kind of take a look at teams and see what everyone's looking like at the current moment in time when I'm looking. Now, another piece of news I would like to discuss with you all, and this one could be massive for the Michigan Panthers. It was revealed earlier today, per James Larson of Pro Football Newsroom. Eric Marty is out as the offensive coordinator with the Panthers, and Marcel, and I hope I'm saying his last name right here because there's a lot of vowels going on in this one here, Belafule, who was on the Philadelphia Stars as a wide receivers coach the last couple of years, has been named as the new offensive coordinator. Now, for those of you maybe not quite in tune with what's going on there, pretty logical hire for the Panthers, all things considered, when if you look back at what they did during the draft, they went and brought in guys like wide receivers Corey Coleman and Devin Gray, among a few other guys as well. During the dispersal draft, pulling some Philadelphia Stars wide receivers in, and it makes a lot of sense. Bring in the wide receivers coach, a guy that made a vast majority of your now skill talent very comfortable in what they were doing offensively over there, and the Stars had a very fun and exciting passing attack led by Corey Coleman himself. The hire makes a ton of sense. Now, if you're not familiar with Marcel, this guy is definitely no stranger to coaching. It's not like he's a young gun or anything like that. His coaching dates all the way back to, at the very latest that I could find, 1995. So ton of coaching experience. He has offensive coordinator roles with teams like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and the Montreal Owlettes, a CFL guy. He's been around the block for quite some time over there. He also has head coaching stints with the University of Ottawa and also the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the CFL. So a guy who has been around the block. He's also held some different roles, whether it's quarterbacks coach, running backs coach, and a few other places as well. I mean, he has been around the block and around offense for quite some time. So I think this is a really good hire, a guy that is very experienced and should be able to help Mike Nolan out in expanding what he wants to do with his offense this year now that they have a ton of talent that's coming in here. With the big additions at wide receiver, I do really think that with this hire and what Mike Nolan's going to try to do over there, you can really expect this offense to be a top flight aerial attack, a unit that's probably going to look to explode through the air, but also get after you with their running game. This is a really exciting time for the Panthers here because, like I mentioned with the EJ Perry discussion earlier, he looked phenomenal in the 2 opportunities that he got, and it's unfortunate that we only got to see him for 2 games last year on the Panthers. I think if EJ Perry takes over that quarterback 1 role with some of the wide receivers they've added, and if you look at the running back room as well over there in Michigan, it's nothing to write off by any means. Bringing in Wes Hills, who was a monster of a running back last year for the New Orleans Breakers in the USFL. This is a unit that is going to be very exciting, but keeping a close eye on the quarterback battle, I definitely think is worthwhile for you Michigan Panthers fans, because whoever ends up taking over the reins there is dealing with an offense that I think is going to be explosive coming next season. And for me personally, I'm really rooting and pulling for EJ Perry there because I think what he can do with his legs, he has youth on his side as well. There is a lot to like about what he brought to the table. For someone to just step in and do what he did, especially in that playoff game against a Maulers defense that was very impressive last season, I am very much looking forward to what this offense could potentially do going into the 2024 season of the UFL. But that's kind of all the news and just stuff that I wanted to run by with you all. It's been a couple of weeks since I've talked to UFL people. Like I said, life has just been very busy. My work schedule is very much all over the place right now. I work in sports television, so I'm basically working tons of late nights and things like that. I basically have my life revolving around sports, which means I'm gone a very large portion of the day, and it's just tough to kind of get in as much as I would like to. But I wanted to say hello, wanted to discuss with you all. Training camp is fast approaching. February 24th, 75-man rosters kicking off, getting things going as we lead into the 2024 season of the UFL, which kicks off on March 30th. We are less than a month away from really getting spring football back and in full swing. Again, March 24th, if you did not know that, mark your calendars. It's fast approaching. These teams are going to have to whittle their units down. I'm very much looking forward to it. I'll be covering stuff with you guys along the way as we approach it closer and closer. I'm going to do my best to try to get in touch with you all a little bit more frequently than I'd like to so far. I do have something planned that I'm hoping that I can put into fruition over the next month or so leading into the preseason, or I guess training camp season of the UFL as well. So keep an eye out for that. But as always, greatly appreciate it if you made it to the end. I will see you all next time. Have a good one.